typing. So
yeah, that was me.
Gotcha. Let's see. Good morning, everybody. Josh Piekla here for Gen AI Insights, doing the Gen AI news briefing. Rating the news essential, important, or optional. We've got some okay and some mediocre stuff from Andrew Z. Horowitz, in my humble opinion. We've got some announcements from A21 Labs, and an interesting new conversation about the nature of open source and its definition, which may be clear other places, but is pretty fuzzy here in the world of generative AI. All right. So let me first put up the definition of open source here as a thing. Let me go here and present. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Okay, we have this definition of open source here. Adam, what'd you think of this? From Rihanna Williams and James O'Donnell.
I think it's worth paying attention to. Debatably important or optional. OSI, being the open source initiative, is probably the best people to be defining this or trying to set some sort of standards around what is the definition of open source, so we can have more transparency in terms of how people are using the term. I'm not totally clear exactly how this specific initiative is going to pan out. I think having some sort of standards around what that means is important. I think there's a lot of confusion right now in the market generally about it. Yes. There's still, I guess, some proof in the pudding, like as it says right there. For a given model's training data, source code, and weights, right. There are attempts to define a level of transparency. So. To what extent do you actually get the source code with their open source model? Like it's not totally clear to me still exactly what they're proposing, but the fact that they're proposing it and that this is currently being explored is probably worth knowing about.
Okay, so that we've got a rating of important on this one, given that, I think, yes?
I'd certainly argue important. I mean, I think it's absolutely almost getting to a criminal crime to be calling all these models open source when the AI leader is familiar with 30 years open source from Apache and Linux, where you do get much more control of the source code and accesses. These are really kind of no cost download models. We saw that a couple of weeks ago in our learning lab, where we had a session on this. It's very confusing. And I think it's particularly important for the AI leader to understand that when we say open source, when vendors tell them open source LLM, it is a completely different thing than all the other dozens and dozens of open source licenses have there. And I think the vendor confusion is vendors aren't helping themselves by adding confusion to this, John. So I think it's actually, this article itself, just because it's from this group at MIT, I think highlights that confusion of it, because no one else is highlighting this right now. So important to be an argument for it.
I might even make essential from what you just said. Amanda, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting, Dr. John, because I think either important or essential. One thing I liked about it too was them mentioning the lack of transparency in training data. So yes. I feel like at this point, most AI leaders probably know all about this and this issue, but it does call that out. So that's one thing I think that's important as well. If for some reason, we have these cases where if you're not familiar with this thing yet, that's something you need to be aware of, and that it's a problem, the training data. And
well, let's give this an essential. I mean, it's a short read. I think it's a vital topic. We're saying, look, this is the group that should be dealing with it. And, I hope in the future, too, they can start to do some of the licensing they have from, the Creative Commons, because, here it's, you can modify it for any purpose. I mean, I think there's also the other levels of Creative Commons license, which makes sense. But all right, let's give this baby an essential. Ankash, good to have you here. How about article number 2, please?
Sure, John. So the next one that we have for today comes from AI21, and they have introduced Jamba 1.5, a family of open models.
All right. Here, I think I have this for Amanda. Amanda, what'd you think? You have a chance to look at our friends from Jamba?
Yeah. So I did have a chance to jump in. So yes, this one is a vendor article, right? But I think with that being said, I don't know if I make a case for importance. So I'm curious to see what others say about it, but just the simple context window size. Just noting whenever we see articles like this, one thing you want to look at is content window size, right? So I think that is in itself something just to kind of see the capabilities that's going on with this model. But again, it's a vendor. So it's
Yeah.
one of those where you can go either way. We can put in the optional category, but whenever we see something up and coming that's like the best at something,
Yes.
I feel like it's noteworthy at the time, but then
Mhm.
who's going to come up and kind of sweep the, take that award from them? I don't know, but anyway, I could go either way, optional or important.
All right. Amanda's on the fence here. Adam, you want to push her one side or the other of the fence?
I think the important thing to note is that this isn't a transformer architecture, right? And that's kind of a big deal because they're coming at it from a different approach. And it's good. I think it's important to understand that transformers aren't really the end all be all, and that there are people out there that maybe they're a little slower to bring something to market that can compete at the same level, but they're coming at it a different way, in a way debatably or even demonstrably is more efficient. And their whole claim is, well, in the long run, that's really what's going to matter here. We might be the tortoise, not the hare, but we're gonna slog along and ultimately be able to outcompete as the game gets bigger. So it's interesting to note these models. They kind of cherry pick the comparisons, and it is the announcement from the vendor about the next generation of their model. So
Yes.
I was on the fence as well, probably leaning towards optional, but it is important to note that something other than transformers are starting to step up to the plate.
Yeah.
It's an SSM architecture, whatever that is.
Yeah. Akash, if you could go down and show some of the graphic comparisons in the article, that would be great. So yeah, a non-transformer architecture runs on a bunch of, this is the claim versus effectiveness on the context window. So, they're saying that their capability to really grok an entire long form, context is much better. I don't know. I was kind of leaning toward important as well. Michael Novak saying optional, but Michael, I was leaning toward important because important again is elective reading by the AI leader. What do you think here, Paul?
Yeah, so let me a couple of things. So one, AI 21 Labs is one of the vendors we named as emerging leader last year. We started with a proprietary model. So this is a company coming out with an open source model. So a little Mistral doing both open source and the proprietary. So I think that's an interesting trend for the AI leader to be aware of whatever this open is actually defined. I think second is that, they're credible. They've raised $250 million. They're a thoughtful group, and they are using a different architecture. And I think with things like this and liquid AI and others that are really starting to come up with completely different models and transformer, it's something that the AI leaders should be aware of this because it does affect technology choice over the next 18 months.
All right. So we're going to give it important it is. So we got an E and an I. We're starting off. It's not just because it's Friday. We actually, I'm keeping the discipline of grading here. Next article, please, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from A16Z, and it talks about how AI will turn capital into labor.
All right, we have not to prejudice the judge here, we have a word salad article here that could have been written better by a robot. What'd you think, Adam?
You said it. Look, it's long and it takes a while to get to a singular point, which is basically that. Some massive thunder, excuse me. As we've gone through this wave of digitization, we can have like a single person enabling more people at scale to do something, and now that single person is becoming an agent. So that we're going to be able to enable this wave of conversion of capital into labor at a scale that we've never been able to before, which I think should be pretty apparent, frankly. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of words to get to a singular point that seem pretty apparent to me. I rate it as optional.
Yeah, this guy, Alex Rampelli. Ankash, if you go down a little farther and put the pseudo formula, show the pseudo formula that he's got down there. Capital is GPU plus coffee plus software equals labor. It's just it's so stupid. I mean, look, it's capital substitution for labor. You don't then turn around and say, okay, my car is a horse, right? Because it's capital substitution for a horse. I mean, come on. Anyway, badly argued from a person who obviously flunked out of his economics class if he took one, and badly written. Other than that, it's great. Not what you're used to seeing from Anderson Horowitz. So,
Amanda, there's our Dr. John. He's got his edge back. All is good in the world now.
Hey, whatever. If we have no standards, right? Yes, this is not on the one hand, on the other hand argument. It's just garbage, optional, super optional. All right. Next, no one is ready for this.
Yes, John. So this one talks about the new Google Pixel phone and some of the features and how you can't differentiate from real and AI generated images.
Yes, other than the clickbait, title. What do you think here, Paul?
Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, they had a couple good examples of comparing a quote traditional video and AI, or traditional picture and AI generated picture here. I don't think there's anything particularly new here. I think we are in a meta conversation about, determining what's real is no longer from the veracity of a picture. But this particular article, I think, is interesting, but optional for AI leader.
Amanda, you agree?
Yeah, I think optional for our audience. The only thing I would say is just, another vendor sort of coming out with some kind of technology to check for deep fakes. And yeah, I think that's literally it for me.
Yeah, Michael Novak agrees here. It's interesting. I think that I agree with optional. I do think that we're going to have to come up with new methods that we think for verification, right? For a while there, before the New York Times and some other papers started to, push, some veracity in journalism in the late 1800s, right? And, professionalize it and have some standards around truth that was in the paper and so forth. And I'm not saying they're the only ones, but they were part of that movement. And now we've kind of gone the other way. And then, you have photos and now the other way. We evolved these truth mechanisms, these verification mechanisms in society. And I don't think we have one yet for this domain, but I bet we'll create one, whether it's some combination of blockchain or, whatever, right? But we're gonna have to do it and quickly because we're such a visual species.
Well, so, and John, Orwell is just in the back of my head screaming.
Oh, yeah.
If you read 1984, we're fighting in North and South and changing history. He never imagined that, like in an instant, every single newspaper, could rewrite history. It's really breathtaking. Someone needs to do Orwell 1984 based on AI.
Yeah, 2024, right? Here we are 60 years after, 40 years after his, prophetic date, right? And he was a total genius. I agree. Adam, you good with optional in this one? But, certainly poking on an important idea.
It's an important subject, but deepfakes are not new. They're just getting a lot easier, and that's pretty much the only point here. So
Michael Novak notes that a lot of folks going after this. I think it's interesting. If you go back in the history of if you go back in business history, and you read Al Chandler in particular, he documents how the creation of things like standard accounting and standard costs and management control systems were inventions that came on the back of industrialization. So somebody saying something like gross margin or, return on capital, things like that. Those are invented, basically the late 1800s, early 1900s, and then put through management systems. The partnerships and so forth before then didn't have concepts like that. The Venetians definitely didn't when they invented double entry bookkeeping. But I would predict that there's going to be two new capabilities that are going to be as common as things like gross margin. I think, I don't know what we're going to call it, but it's going to be verification. You're going to have to be able to look and say, okay, how sure are we that this data is what these data are, what they say they are, or these pictures or this evidence. I think that's going to be as common as bookkeeping. And then the other one I think is going to be underwriting. That is statistically, what's there. I wrote a short piece called Quantum Underwriting about that, but the verification one, assurance, I haven't written yet. But anyway, I think they're going to be capable. Every organization is going to be able to, have to be able to sort the fake from the real. I think. Anyway, okay, optional. Next.
Okay, the next one again comes from A16Z. So they have released this top 100 GenAI consumer apps report, and it's the third edition of this one.
All right, Amanda, what do you think? I think we had a better draw from the writer pool at A16Z on this one, in my opinion. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think this one's a decent article. So one thing I would say is just pulling out some stats they threw out there, which we've talked about this before, how content generation, editing, image, video, music, it says are the top 52% of web apps, new entrants, 58% in creative tool space. So it's giving different statistics it polled. One thing I found interesting again is Perplexity. They said is number 3 on web for AI powered search engines and things like that. So I think if nothing else, it's interesting to kind of go in there and see how they rated these different apps and to see who's kind of going up and down on the list. Which again, we're consistently seeing different vendors are rivaling ChatGPT. So I just think it's an interesting read, especially it's Friday, so maybe on the weekend, someone might want to dig into this. But so I don't know. It's tough for me to say important or essential on things. So, but I guess I could say important because it's interesting just to see again how these apps are ranking and in what spaces we're really seeing the growth in these apps. So, but open to other ratings.
So between important and essential, leaning toward important. Paul? Where'd you end up on this one?
Yeah, definitely support important. That was well stated, man.
Adam, I was thinking essential, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
It's nice having it all together. It's nice, as Amanda pointed out, the sort of the different lenses to it. A lot of it, I just don't know if I would give it essential. A lot of it, if you wanted to search even almost for those things, you could probably find a similar list. I'm not sure to what extent to what depth I guess they put analysis into the criteria behind their rankings. But if so I was on the fence. I was probably important.
All right, let's give this baby important. Nice. It's interesting, these visual apps. I think back to the thing we were just talking about, deep fakes and so forth. The visual apps. Michael notes this emerging category of aesthetics and dating. Yeah, right. We're all gonna, I'm gonna look like George Clooney here if I ever date again. Okay, it's gonna get interesting. All right, given this baby an important, but as a visual species, this visual species plus our phones, I think it's just going to continue to be a visual world and a storytelling world. All right, next.
The next one comes from Midjourney. So Midjourney has now opened its website to all users, and it's offering 25 free AI image generations.
All right, Adam, what'd you think here? We've got Midjourney opening the storefront.
I think it's great that everyone can sort of have a taste and get an experience for it. The reality is, for most people, the real value that comes out of Midjourney versus even using DALL-E ChatGPT is when you get into the real complexity and control that it offers someone who is an experienced user. So in 25 tries, people are probably going to see it and they're going to say, yeah, it's pretty good. I think what I really celebrate in this is that I think there's another tool on the market, a website called Freepik, Freepik. And a guy I know sort of through X and the AI art community, this guy, Javi, he made an incredible upscaler. He basically used open source and built a commercial product that does phenomenal upscale, got himself acquired by this company, Freepik, and has joined their ranks. And they have just launched, it's called Mystic. And it's basically almost mid-journey quality AI image generation. And at least some of what we hear talking is that in some ways their competitive threat and the fact that people can get on and try that and it's getting a lot of traction, and other competitors as well, that like Flux is that new open source model that's phenomenal, very close to Midjourney as well. I think they're feeling threatened and they're trying to sort of protect and continue to acquire market share as their leading edge software isn't leading by as much as it was.
Gotcha.
But this particular news for Midjourney in particular is probably optional. I would even encourage people to try some of the other tools out there.
One thing I agree, optional. And I think one thing that's fabulous about it, though, is that you don't have to go to Discord now. You finally have a browser interface. Right. And Discord is only understandable by 0.002% of the 8 billion people in the world here. So if you want a free way to understand the power of text to image and not have to pay, for OpenAI, this is
although
one of many options.
Just from the previous article, right, and all those rankings, it says AI companies, with the highest Discord rankings or whatever, and Midjourney is the largest Discord. Full stop. Like, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So for them to then open up, I mean, when people are willing to go through the friction of Discord because of the quality of this tool, for it to be web-based now and open for everyone is going to really crack things open. That's true.
I don't remember. They were doing like $200 million of revenue with like 12 people or something here. And I think the other thing is just breathtaking. We were sitting here in August, Amanda, maybe 18 months after ChatGPT dawned, and this is just passe news. It's just it's not even in the middle. It's just optional. It's just stunning.
Yeah, I mean, this is this is an area that, in terms of hyper competition, other than times when our countries have been at war, where I would say you have even faster innovation. I mean, if you look at what the Germans and the Americans and some others, but mostly the Germans, Americans, and the Brits did, between 1938 and 1945, the speed of innovation there. I mean, this has got to be second to that, right? I mean, in terms of just how quickly this is coming along. And also the First World War, there's a lot. I mean, the invention of the tank, large battleship, all kinds of stuff was going on then. But, 39 to 45 was pretty amazing in terms of global innovation. And this stuff, is going as fast, I would say. Not quite as fast. You don't have whatever. It's fast. All right. Ankaj, if you would put together the tote.
Well, and before we go there, John, that's why I think, Adam, a year from now, will agents kind of be passe? Oh, it's just 5 different agents that do all your travel planning and give you a customized, beautiful color.
Of course, my agent has a bank account, and I have to top it up because it's spending my money for me.
Yeah, funny. Yeah, I guess I think agents actually will be kind of funky because I think. Michael says years compressed to days. Yes, feels that way. I think agents will be funky because the environment for agents is so heterogeneous, and we're accustomed to homogeneous, agent stuff. I think that the visual stuff is going to be interesting. The thing I think we haven't seen yet is more full body avatars in real time talking to avatars, I think. And I think talking in general, I've been doing a lot of experimentation with talking to some of these robots. And, my guess is that's the thing that people aren't paying enough attention to. On the agent stuff, we'll see. Just because, but hey, I thought that, MTV wouldn't go anywhere. So there you go. All right.
And where is it? And where is it now, John? See,
I was gonna say,
you were right. You were
Good
right.
point.
No, but no, but early on, I was like, "What? Who needs to see the music?" And then I saw MTV. It's like, "Oh my goodness!"
Yeah, it
No,
had its day. That's for sure. Yeah.
The thing in following this industry for as long as I have, the big thing I missed was the impact of social media. Like I just had how dominant it is. Google, all that other stuff. When we're teaching, the market space course, we predicted Google, we predicted, a bunch of Salesforce like stuff, but social media and the depth and the breadth of social media, that was the stuff that we missed. But it's here.
and tie that back to your voice comment, John. It's because it's social, because it's people to people, the robot social. I mean, there really is explosion coming with the robots talking to humans, robots talking to robots.
Yeah, but we had done a lot of analyses with mathematical sociology and the early block modeling stuff. So I really I hold myself accountable for missing that, because I saw the power of the networking, and we're doing that kind of analysis back in the 80s. So I should have seen it. But anyway, okay, here we have essential, important, optional, optional, important, optional. We've got the essential on the definition. We've got Jamba and its opening, its models, and a new non-transformer or hybrid transformer plus quantized model analysis, and the consumer apps is important. All right, we've got some decent stuff in terms of reading. Paul, what do we look like for? Oh, Paul left us. On Monday, we have. I meant to grab him before he left. On Monday, we have an AI leader whose name I'm forgetting presenting. That's not very helpful. All right. Any other announcements? Oh, here we have Paul. Paul,
Hey, Paul.
what's the Monday night? I'm sorry.
Oh, we have that's what I meant. I'm sorry, but I clicked too many tabs.
Yeah.
So we have a fabulous Monday night learning lab. David Howard is a senior data scientist at Cox Automotive.
There we go.
And they have a way to start with your own questions, evaluate models, and then have models judge each other in a very, very impressive way. So he's going to walk through a presentation he gave at the AI 4 conference, not just last week, recently.
Yes.
So join us for a very thoughtful approach on evaluating models based on questions that you generate for your company. Monday at 7 o'clock Eastern at our learning lab.
Yes, and for those who don't know, Cox Automotive is a huge company in the automotive distribution space. All right, Amanda, any announcements or anything?
Nope. Just have a great weekend.
All right, Adam, anything that our audience needs to hear? You're working on great stuff. Ankaj, anything?
No, John.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. The team will be back on Monday. I'm going to be off Monday, Tuesday, but you will be in good hands. Take care. Bye-bye.